everybody, and welcome into today's episode of Around the Slice. Today, we are, of course, back with our little Bills free agent target mini series. In one of last week's episodes, a couple episodes ago, I gave you my free agent targets on the offense side of the ball for Brandon Beane of the Buffalo Bills. So today, I'm going to give you my free agent targets on the defensive side of the ball for Brandon Beane, the Buffalo Bills. I'm going to be honest here. Looking back on the offensive free agent target list, yeah, there's a few names here and there, but in my opinion, at least, in my eyes, at least, the free agent class and pool on the offensive side of the ball, if you will, is a little scarce. In my opinion, it's / and okay at best. But luckily, on the defensive side of the ball, thank God this team needs reinforcements because this free agent class on the defensive side of the ball, there's some legit dudes here. There's some legit high-level, noticeable names that stick out, and I'll be very excited if we sign a number of these guys. So luckily, the defensive side of the ball is where we need reinforcements, and the defensive free agent class, in my opinion at least, is much better than the offensive free agent class on that side of the ball. So let me just preface this with, I'm going to be giving you my defensive free agent targets for defensive tackle, defensive end, linebacker, corner, safety. So without further ado, let's just jump into defensive tackle. In my opinion, we need defensive tackle and defensive end / pass rush, whatever, however you want to term it. Look at it equally the same, but I did split them up. They are still technically two different positions. So here's where my head's at for defensive tackle. You have Ed Oliver, who in my opinion had an overall pretty disappointing season in 2024. And then what else do you really have? There's a conversation to be had about a post-June 1st release about Daquan Jones. I'm not expecting it just because of the dire need of the defensive tackle bodies and room as a whole. But he is starting to decline. He's really starting to show his age. He's not nearly as effective as he was a couple of years ago, pre-injury, before his pec injury. Was without a doubt like darn near top 5 defensive tackle in the entire league back then. But that's long removed, long gone. And other than Ed Oliver, who do you have? You have washed-up veterans and Jordan Phillips. Jordan Phillips, Quentin Jefferson, Austin Johnson, and then Daquan Jones, and then Dwayne Carter, but he's more of a high-end rotational piece. He's a direct, very similar play style, direct backup at 3-tech to Ed Oliver. So what do we need for defensive tackle? I'm looking for a big body, run-stuffing defensive tackle personally, and I'm looking for one in the first 3 rounds of the draft because this defensive interior and defensive tackle class in the 2025 NFL draft coming up in a few months is absolutely loaded to the nines. I mean, it's unreal. So a run-stuffing defensive tackle in free agency, and then a run-stuffing young defensive tackle, 1-tech in the early on in the draft. But for my defensive tackle free agent targets, we're going to start swinging right off the bat. And by the way, guys, when I mention these guys, these are in no specific order. Excuse me. There's in no specific order of my offensive guys. These are in no specific order of priority or significance or importance or how much I want them and what have you, if you will. These are just the order of what Spot Track gave me, the order of how they list them. And when I say these guys age, just know that that's their age by the start of the new league year. So this is their age when I say it. That's their age by March 12th, 2025, start of the new league year. And then I'll give you their Spot Track projection, Yeah, a few lower end names and lesser known names to the general public across the league don't have projections up on the site, up on Spot Track. But for the most part, majority do, which I love. They give you that. So we can compare the projected market value to my personal valuation of them, if you will. BJ Hill, 29 years old. Obviously, BJ Hill is someone who for a number of years has been known as an elite run stuffer. Whether it was at the Giants or whether it was at the Bengals this past few years, I've always really loved BJ Hill, and I've always thought he's a pretty underrated player to the general public and to film nerds and film bros and stuff. And all that because I just view him as an elite run stuffer. He would be exactly what the Bills would need. He is 29 years old. Here's the thing, though. I actually on Spot Track, now that I look at it, Spot Track projected $9 million per year projection. So honestly, that's not as much as I thought he would get. If BJ Hill isn't going to cost you anything near double digits, like $8-9 million a year, I would absolutely in a heartbeat sign up for an elite run stuffing one tech and start to phase out Daquan Jones, or maybe have a heavy rotation with split with Daquan Jones, BJ Hill, and a rookie here and there. That would be awesome. Now that I look at it, only $9 million a year for BJ Hill. I think that could be a really, really nice steal. Next, DJ Jones. I'm going to be honest here. I didn't know DJ Jones was as old as he was already. I thought he was still like 26, 27, the way people talk about him. But I guess it speaks to how his play style never really ages. To me, he's 30 years old, and this is another one where you're gonna have to pay up $11.2 million a year projection. That's kind of like a third tier defensive tackle. The thing with BJ Hill and DJ Jones is they're not gonna give you like near anything as a pass rusher, but that's okay because hopefully Ed Oliver can bounce back into being a high level, great to elite pass rusher at the defensive tackle, 3-tech traditional position. And you don't need a pass rusher at 1-tech. 1-techs aren't supposed to be those real savants, if you will, in terms of pass rush. They're big bodies, literal big bodies that stop the run, literal big fat blobs, like no shade, but big fat blobs in the middle that just eat up blocks and don't let no running back go nowhere. So DJ Jones, 30 years old, $11.2 million per year projection. Now, this is where it gets a little dicey, the double digits. If you're asking me what I want BJ Hill at single digits per year, specifically 9 projected, and what I want DJ Jones at double digits per year, pushing 12 million at 11.2 projected, I'm going to take BJ Hill slightly. Yes, they're only a year apart in age, but I don't know if I want to pay a defensive tackle that would be a high-end rotational piece with someone else like an older defensive tackle like Daquan Jones. So that's just where my head's at personally. Next, Sebastian Joseph Day. I feel like for the last 2 off seasons in a row, I know for a fact I've been pounding the drum, beating the drum and pounding the table heavily for Sebastian Joseph Day. And guys, I'm falling for it again. I'm doing it for a 3rd year in a row. Whether it's been the Chargers, whether it's been the Titans, I just think this guy is one of the most what do I want to use? The most consistent, like not players, but defensive interior players, excuse me, defensive tackles in the league. He can line up on the interior. He can line up on the edge in certain rare 3-4 sets, 4-3, however you want to look at it. I just think he's really consistent. He's never going to pop in terms of athleticism. He's never going to have the most statistical production in the world, but I just think he's a solid, rock-solid defensive tackle. And if you can get Sebastian Joseph Day, is still only 29 years old, still relatively young-ish, and only $4.5 million a year, I mean, that's just incredible value in my opinion. And this is one that, like, I think every team in the league should want to have because he's never going to be a preferred starter. But if he can be a second or third or maybe even Buffalo's case, if they get upgrades over him, a 3rd or 4th defensive tackle, like high-end rotational piece, like for only $4.5 million a year, that would be absolutely unreal and incredible in my opinion. So I'm beating the drum for him once again for what feels like a 3rd consecutive offseason because I just think he's as rock solid as they come. Here is easily the big ticket, eye in the sky, whatever term they use, whatever phrase that is. The prize possession Brandon Beane should look at in the Buffalo Bills, in my opinion, free agency. Milton freaking Williams. He's still only 26 years old. He had one heck of a season, one heck of a Super Bowl. The Eagles had 6 total sacks in that game. Josh Sweat, we'll talk about in a minute too, had 2 of those sacks. Jalix Hunt had 1, so that's 3 total. Jordan Davis had 1, and then Milton Williams finished off 5 and 6, so he had 2 as well. I mean, this guy can rush the passer at an elite level. This guy's an elite run stuffer. He's everything you want in today's modern day prototypical defensive tackle. He's a big, girthy guy as well. I mean, he just does everything at a really high level. I will literally cry if we get him because he's still only 26 years old. In spot track, this is way lower than I think. We're going to talk about a defensive tackle in a minute who's way over projected, in my opinion, in terms of price point. But, like, if you can get Milton Williams at only $12 million a year, like Patrick is projecting, oh, my God, sign me up for that in a heartbeat. I'd be willing to go up 15, 16, 17, pushing $18 million a year. I don't care. But, like, Brandon Beane, I don't give a, like, flying you know what about anything anymore for Milton Williams. If you want, I'm even willing to overpay Milton Williams. And I know that sounds crazy and not financially feasible and not financially smart. But who cares about being financially smart at this point for Brandon Beane? You're a contender. If you want to overpay Milton Williams, I'm all for it. But if you can get him anywhere from 12 to 14 million, if he gets anywhere basically less than 15 million a year, that's a huge, phenomenal, monstrous steal in my opinion for his standards. Next, Osa Odigizua, 26 years old. Now, I'm someone who has always really Osa Odigizua has popped the last couple years. I think not just the most underrated, one of the most underrated defensive tackles in general over the last couple years, but I've been a big fan of him as in general one of the most overrated players in the league in general over the last couple of years. I think it's either a return to Dallas or go to Washington with the Commanders because when he thrived, he was a Dan Quinn. So he's still only 26 years old, very young still. But this is where Spot Track loses me with their stupid $21 million a year projection. If anything, that should be flipped. Him and Milton Williams price points. $21 million a year, that's like pushing Quinn Williams, Dexter Lawrence, that's more than Ed Oliver. That's pushing that's elite defensive tackle money. Excuse me. That's elite defensive tackle money in the scope of the landscape of the league in the NFL and whatnot, and what have you. So I don't understand. This is a gross overpay, in my opinion. If he gets anything more than $18 million a year, 17, 18, some ballpark around there, that's a gross overpay, in my personal opinion. Milton Williams, like $9 million a year less projection, like flip those. That doesn't make any much sense to me. If that makes sense. Next, Jaron Reed. I feel like as he's aged, people have kind of forgotten about him because just a few years ago he was really good. But he kind of fell out of favor with, if you will, in that Seahawks rotation with Draymond Jones, Byron Murphy from Texas is a rookie. Excuse me, Derek Hall, Daryl Taylor's not on the team anymore. But when Poona Ford was there, some guys have overtaken him. But Jaron Reed is still a consistent level player, in my opinion. He's 32 years old, and if you can get him like Spot Jack's projecting for only $5.7 million a year, give or take around there, then I do it. So a lot of attractable names in this defensive tackle. But if I'm like I said, this is like by far the prize of free agency defensive tackle. Wrap up the defensive tackle conversation here. Like Milton Williams, Brandon Beane, I'm willing to overpay. Do whatever it takes just to get him on your goddamn team. I just do it. Next, defensive end. This is a tick below defensive tackle, but we need defensive tackle, defensive end, whole defense line in general, like very badly. First, defensive end. For defensive end, here's where my head's at. Here's what we got in the roster. I think DeJuan Smoot will be brought back as a rotational style pass rusher, but I think he's really low-end rotational pass rusher. He's nothing more than fourth or fifth rotational pass rusher. Very upgradable, in my opinion. You have Greg Rousseau, but I don't think he's number one game regular pass rusher. You have AJ Epinesa, but I don't think he's more than a third or fourth high-end to middle average rotational pass rusher. So you don't have any dudes. Go out and get Max Crosby, Michael Parsons, Trey Hendricks, and Myles Garrett. But let's live in a world where, unfortunately, we don't get any of those. So first guy here, DeMarcus Lawrence, 32 years old. For a guy that's 32, in the last few years, he's been very injury-prone and injury-ridden, unfortunately, if you will. $12 million a year projected on Spot Track. That's a few million too much, for my opinion. I'm more 8, 9, maybe 10 million, but 8, 9 is more my liking. So if that's the case, if he wants, I don't want to say he's going to be greedy, but if he wants more than that, I'll probably pass. He is an aging pass rusher that just came off a significant knee injury, had significant knee surgery. Von Miller over again, maybe? I don't know. Next, Josh Sweat. This is easily the second best prize in free agency for Brandon Beane and the Buffalo Bills purposes behind Milton Williams. He had 2 sacks in the Super Bowl as well. He's still only 27 years old. I didn't know he was this old. I thought he was in the league since like 2020, 21 range, and apparently he's been there since 2018. So, in my opinion, Josh Sweat is going to get absolutely paid. Like someone's going to drop the bag on him, as they should. 27 years old, and Spot Check hasn't projected $18.8 million per year projection. Again, if you want Milton Williams or Josh, or you're not going to get both. So if you want Milton Williams or Josh Sweat in this scenario, $12 million a year projected Milton Williams, what a freaking steal that would be. But $18.8 million a year for Josh Sweat, that's quite a hefty amount, especially if you're going to extend Greg Rousseau to anything above $22 million a year. I don't know how you can justify this, but like Josh Sweat, I'm not expecting the Bills to sign him, but they need to make a heavy pursuit for him and or Milton Williams. Like they need to. Next, Derek Barnett. he's just so consistent. Like, I don't know. I think it's unlikely. Never say never, but I think it's unlikely that Houston brings him back because I think they want to bring back a cheaper veteran like Mario Edwards. They already have two absolute stud pass rushers in Will Anderson, who they're going to have give a huge lucrative extension to after next season when he's eligible. Daniel Hunter. They've always been drafting very well to D'Amico Ryans, and luckily this D-line class is absolutely loaded in the draft. So I think it's unlikely that Derek Barnett goes back to Houston. So Derek Barnett is a third pass rusher. Like, he's absolutely, without a doubt, starting caliber worthy, like as a number 2 high-end pass rusher. 28 years old, $7.1 million a year projection. If you can get Derek Barnett for $8 million or less to be your second pass rusher over AJ Epinesa, and AJ Epinesa was relegated to more of an average to high-end rotational role, probably average, more so, give or take that scenario, then I'm absolutely all for Derek Barnett. This is someone who I've been very interested when he came in the league with the Eagles, when he went to Houston. Now as a free agent, I think this is a low-key, really good veteran addition. Malcolm Kuntz, I've had quite the journey with Malcolm Kuntz in terms of like making this list here today for Run the Slice. Me, Aiden, personally. Malcolm Kuntz, I was gonna put on the list, then I wasn't, and now I finally decided, yeah, let's throw him on the list. He is coming off a torn ACL, but he's still really young, 26 years old. With like, it's not some Von Miller. We're like, oh god, you're gonna be dust when you come back from a torn ACL. No, $20 million a year project on spot track. Get out of here with that. That is ridiculous. I think he's more like 12, 13 million a year max, if that. Like someone's gonna overpay for him coming up the torn ACL. He was really good up and coming for the torn ACL for the Raiders, but like I don't know how you can justify 20 million a year. Like that's more projection than Josh Sweat. Kick rocks. Get out of here with that. Like, okay, goodbye. That's not gonna happen. How ridiculous. Next, I think this would be a really good veteran presence to tie the room together. A veteran presence, help along a draft pick, help along a guy like Javon Solomon, relegate AJ Epinesa to a more starting caliber role, and having a good, really rotational caliber role, having a good, reliable rotation. So Khalil Mack, yes, he is 34 years old, but if you didn't know, he went to UB, the University of Buffalo. He went to UB, so maybe he wants to come back home. I mean, he was dominant with the Raiders. He was dominant with the Bears, dominant with the Chargers. He really doesn't have any injury history. Yeah, he misses a few games here and there, but that's not really an injury history. Like his own teammate, Joey Bosa, has a much deeper depth of an injury history than him. But 34 years old. But if Khalil Mack's projection, 23.6 million per year projection on Spot Track is true, then I'm probably out on him. Like I'm not paying him over $15 million a year, but this is kind of still a big fish that would tie the room together as a veteran presence very nicely. Next, Josh Uche is someone I've always been intrigued by. I'm not as high on him. If you listen to my free agency preview videos last year at all on this podcast, which thank you for that. If you didn't, I'll recap real quick. I'm not as high on him as he was at that point last year. Like last year, I was really high on him. He started with the Patriots, then the trade line, then with the Chiefs, mostly healthy and scratchless, inactive, especially in the Super Bowl, but still only 26 years old. And if you can get him for $4.6 million a year, then that's really good. I've always been really intrigued by him as a third, like high-end rotational pass rusher. I guess that would be a little redundant if they jeopardize that, so maybe not, but throw it in the list anyway. Next, Shaq Barrett. He probably just retires, 32 years old, no projection. I just wanted to throw him on here. Next, Baron Browning. He's had quite the journey. His first couple of years in the league with the Broncos, like he was a legit dude. Like he's explosive as they come, shot out of a cannon. He can line up at more stack linebacker, edge 4-3-3-4. But then they changed schemes, and Vance Joseph, and I don't think he was ever the same after that. Cardinals at the trade deadline this past year didn't really do much. He's still only 26 years old, very young. $5.5 million a year projection. So out of all these defensive ends / pass rushers, obviously Josh Sweat is the big ticket. But if you're looking for a cheaper option, I would really look at Derek Barnett as like a guy that can absolutely be a starter who just hasn't been in Houston because of guys ahead of him. But I would look for that. Linebacker, this isn't really an urgent need. Either defensive tackle, defensive end, corner, and safety are clearly huge needs to big to huge needs in most cases. On this defense and free agency / draft. Linebacker's the only one where like I'm cool if we don't sign somebody. Like I would love to have one or two guys that can compete for veteran depth / safety purposes. Because other than Matt Milano, all the guys are really young. Terrell Bernard for going into his 3 years in the league. Jordan Williams, 2 years late. Joe Andreessen, rookie. Eddie Lafucio, rookie. So I just need one or two more veterans. This first guy, now that I look at it, might be a bit more expensive than like a reserve veteran. But this could be like a legit backup and not just a special teams guy. Isaiah McDuffie. I'm very intrigued by this Packers linebacker, Isaiah McDuffie, because the Packers all year dealt with injuries interspliced here and there with Edgerrin Cooper. What a phenomenal freaking rookie pick. And then Quay Walker, who, aside from his temper and anger issues, is actually a really underrated linebacker. And Isaiah McDuffie had to come in and kind of fit the role of like he can play outside linebacker, weak side linebacker / weakest linebacker, middle linebacker, Mike linebacker. He can play kind of all over the middle of the field. So he's still only 25 years old. Now, projection of $4.8 million per year projection on Spot Track. That's more than like a special teams only player. But I would love to have him for $2 or $3 million a year. And this other Packers linebacker, who this guy's much younger than I thought he was. Eric Wilson, he filled in nicely, just like Isaiah McDuffie for injuries there as well. He's only 30 years old. This is a much more feasible contract for special teams purposes. $1.6 million a year projection on Spot Track. That's really good. And then a few other names here. We have Neville Hewitt, 31 years old, $1.9 million a year projection. Again, these are just special teams additions. Delshon Phillips, who's actually on a surprise Bills roster. He surprisingly made the Bills roster a number of years ago. I'm talking like 2018, 19 range, 20 range, somewhere in there. 28 years old. And then KJ Britt, 25 years old. I think he's just run his course in Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay with the Buccaneers. Next, Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, 28 years old, just released for the 49ers. He was actually a really good third linebacker for the 49ers when Dre Greenlaw come back, even when he was out. Fred Warner, I don't think they need to bring him back. I think they released him the other day, so they're obviously not bringing him back. Linebacker is not a big deal, just one or two veteran names. Competition / depth reserve, but especially special teams veteran, special teams purposes. Corner, this is the cream of the crop. Like obviously Milton Williams stick out defensive tackle. Obviously Josh Sweat stick out as pass rusher / defensive end, but this corner and safety, like there's multiple names here that I would love to have. So these first two guys, you're going to have to pay up big time for. First is Travarius Ward. Second is DJ Reed. Obviously, Travarius Ward, very sad story. Obviously, the whole like with him and his wife lost their like 3-year-old daughter in a drowning accident or something. And because I understand, like he doesn't want to go back to San Francisco because of the scars, horrible memories that brings back with that, and I completely understand. So if he wants to change a senior, you're going to have to pay up with Ward. He's 29 years old, but $15.3 million a year projection. I'm more looking for a corner, $9, $10 million a year max, because I like Rasul Douglas, like he shows age and really slow and not flick to begin with, but ball skills and ball hawking ability just aren't there whatsoever anymore. So that's kind of intriguing to me. But I'm more looking to go a cheaper option, but you're going to have to pay up for Ward and now DJ Reed, who we'll also talk about. I think, like, by far, and I think Jets fans will even admit this and tell you this, like, by far he was, like, not even close to better corner than Sauce Gardner in his third year this past season. Sauce Gardner had a really bad season. Holding penalties, pass interference penalties, getting too physical, jamming receivers at the line. So DJ Reed's only 28 years old. Surprisingly, he's projected a few thousand less, 1 million less than Travarius Ward, 14.7 million a year projection. I'm very intrigued by Ward and Reed. They're both zone match corners. They're both very good man corners. If the Bills are looking more of a 50-50 split, bringing in Ryan Nielsen, Bobby Babbage is your defensive coordinator. I'm really intrigued by those two options. You're going to have to really kind of dig deep and find money there. Next, Asante Samuel Jr. I've always personally, I haven't just liked Asante Samuel Jr. I have loved Asante Samuel Jr. If you did not know, obviously back 4 years ago, I wasn't doing any podcasts whatsoever. I was still in my senior year of high school. But talk with our friends and stuff, in the 2021 NFL draft, I wanted Asante Samuel Jr. out of Florida State for the Buffalo Bills so freaking badly. He was a freaking huge target of mine, and now that he's a free agent, they can kind of redeem themselves and get him again. So he's only 25 years old. I mean, still extremely young for a guy that's already been in the league 4 years and his contract is up. Yes, $11.5 million a year projection. That's quite a bit lower than Ward and Reed would cost, though. I would be so elated if they got this guy. Next, Elijah Molden. I wouldn't be nearly as excited, but Elijah Molden, he can play safety, slot corner, outside corner. He's a versatile chess piece. I just don't know if he's a preferred outside the corner starter like we want, but still only 26 years old. This is a really cheap option, not really cheap, but relatively cheap comparatively to the corner market and the rest in this list, in my opinion, in my eyes, whatever. 6.2 million a year projection on Spot Track. And then Kello Witherspoon, a nice veteran, 29 years old. So he is approaching that 30-year-old age cliff. But if I were to obviously Ward and big swings, but honestly relatively cheaper route, I'm willing to pay the $11 million projected for Asante Samuel Jr. I will be over the freaking moon if we get this, because the corner room is going to have a lot of transition this offseason as soon as next month or so, probably. You're going to extend Christian Benford to a huge lucrative extension. You're going to trade Kyer Elam. That's just headed for a divorce. That has not worked out. Jamarcus Ingram, nice chess piece, but never a preferred starter, obviously. And what I would do is, if you sign Asante Samuel Jr., you don't need to draft one in the first round, maybe middle rounds, but fill out the room and replace Kyer Elam with CB3, third corner 3. But Asante Samuel Jr. I'd be over the freaking moon. Way less than Ward and Reed would cost. Safety, this is by far there's some legit names in here. If you thought corner was juicy, safety's got some names. First, Justin Reed. Let me process with this, because I've kind of been prefacing with every position before I get into the actual names and stuff, whatever else. I want to give you guys what I'm looking for in these certain positions. Safety, I'm looking for someone that, because we already have our physical downhill style tackler in Taylor Rapp, close to the line of scrimmage guy. I want our more free safety type, center fielder type that has great ball skills, is a ball hawk, if you will, and is a reliable tackler, and someone mostly who's very athletic, and Justin Reed is very athletic. No shade to DeMar Hamlin, but he has good enough ball skills, and he's not very athletic, unfortunately. So Justin Reed, 28 years old. Now, if he's looking for this projection on Spot Track of $17.1 million a year, I don't know if the Chiefs will be able to bring him back, because they're kind of close. They're not in cap hell, but they only have 11 or so million in space. So, 17.1 million for Justin Reed. I'm probably out at that point, but if you can convince him to a few million cheaper than that, I'd love to have him. He's an uber athletic talent. Next, Justin Simmons. He is aging. Kind of showed a drop off the last couple years, but if you want kind of a guy, a get by option for 1 or 2 years max, 31 years old, $5.8 million a year projection, that's a good steady veteran presence for relatively cheap. Next, Julian Blackmon, he's one of the only 2 bright spots in the Colts secondary. Their corner room's a mess. Don't come here with Dallas Flowers, Jalen Jones, Juju Brents. What kind of corner room is that? Kenny Moore at slot corner, Julian Blackmon, he could play either safe spot, free, or strong. In this case, who would play free, although it doesn't matter with Taylor Rapp because they're so interchangeable these days. I would love Julian Blackmon, 26 years old, $8 million a year projection. So if we don't have to pay double-digit territory, that's awesome in my opinion. Next, Javon Holland. The more and more I think about this, it's first of all, I think it's highly likely that he returns to the Dolphins. I think 1 of 2 spots. I think it's very likely, actually my official formal prediction would be that he ends up with the Vikings, because if you remember, Javon Holland, by far his best in the league, was his rookie year out of Oregon in 2021. Okay, who was the head coach of that team in 2021? Brian Flores. Where is Brian Flores now? The heralded defensive coordinator of the Minnesota Vikings. Where could Javon Holland end up? Very well with the Minnesota Vikings to be that star safety. And Brian Flores is big on safety play this year with ball skills this past year with Cam Bynum. We'll talk about him in a second. And Josh Metellus. Kind of that rover role in the secondary. I am worried that Javon Holland will get overpaid by a few million, at least by someone. So $15.1 million a year projection. If he wants anything over $13 million a year, I'm probably out, because I am worried he's going to get overpaid, but that's another big ticket name mentioning. Next, John Johnson, only 29 years old, even worse version of Justin Simmons. If you kind of want to get by for a year, and then figure it out next offseason when you have even more cap space, hopefully, then I guess that's okay, but I'll want someone more athletic. He really doesn't have athleticism. Andre Sisco. This is a guy I'm very intrigued by. It's not just because Syracuse is about an hour and a half from my house in one direction, but where I live. It's also because, yes, he went to Syracuse. I think he has great ball skills. I think he's great in coverage. I think he fits his zone defense perfectly. So 25 years old and $10.8 million a year projection. If you can get him for anything 10, 11, even darn near less than that, that would be incredible value to me. And then Cam Bynum. This is a guy you're going to have to splurge for, but 26 years old, 17.7 million a year projection. Like, Cam Bynum is the man, in my opinion, for the safety group. This would be incredible. I like Cam Bynum has unreal ball skills, unreal physical tackler, unreal everything. He can line up as a split field safety. He can line up as a slot corner in some cases. He's a more traditional safety at best. His best role, in my opinion. Like Cam Bynum, holy man, what I love. Oh my God, I'm getting so excited talking about it right now. Whew. Okay, anyway, I got to get past that. Talanoa Ufanga, this is a close second. 26 years old, $11.9 million a year projection. This is also incredible. Like, obviously, he tore his ACL this past year, so I didn't really play for the 49ers much. And when he came back, it wasn't very effective. I think the 49ers kind of need to bring him back because if they're going to lose Travaris Ward at corner, they can't lose Taylor Ufanga at safety and remake your whole secondary when you already have to remake your corner room by losing Ward and you don't have anybody else. So anyway, if I want a splurge option, Cam Bynum. But if I'm looking to kind of go a relatively cheaper route, I'm going to go Andre Cisco or Talanoa Ufanga because Javon Holland, I think, will get unfortunately overpaid. But like Cam Bynum, oh my God, I was getting so excited talking about that. Anyways, here's my Bills 2005 NFL free agency defensive big board. These positions are going to be interspliced all over the place. It's not defensive tackles, defensive end, pass rusher. Like, it's not an order like that. It's just an order of 1 to 33. How many? 1 being my biggest priority for this offseason, 33 being whatever. Number 1, Milton Williams. Number 2, Josh Sweat. Clear top 2 and clear number 1 in Milton Williams. Brandon Beane, I don't care if you overpay for him. That's just what it is. Number 3, DJ Reed. Number 4, Travaris Ward. You're going to have to pay up for those 2 corners, but they'd be phenomenal additions. Number 5, Cam Bynum. Like, this might be my favorite guy of the whole list outside of Milton Williams and Josh Sweat. Like, legit dude. Like, I love Cam Bynum so much. Like, he's improved so much over the last 2 years or 3 years, give or take. I mean, come on, man. You got to go get this. Number 6, safety, Talanoa Ufanga. Number 7, safety, Andre Cisco. If you're going more relatively cheaper routes, you can look at Ufanga and Cisco. Number 8, safety, Javon Holland. Number 9, safety, Justin Reed. Number 10, corner, Asante Samuel Jr. 1 through 10 from Milton Williams over day down to Asante Samuel Jr. at corner at number 10. I would be absolutely overly elated to get any of those guys and so excited. 11, defensive tackle, Osa Digizua. Get out of here with that $20 million a year projection, elite defensive tackle money. But if you can convince him not to go back to Dallas or not to go to Washington or reunite Dan Quinn there with the Commanders, and you can get him. 12, defensive tackle, B.J. Hill, a huge, literal monster, huge, and up the middle, run-stopping defensive tackle. 13, defensive end, Khalil Mack, a nice veteran presence, like I mentioned, kind of recapping here to tie the room together. 14, and create a really nice rotation. 14, defensive tackle, DJ Jones, a little older than I thought he was and expected him to be, but still, elite runs, maybe not elite, but very good run stuffer. 15, defensive end Demarcus Lawrence. Is that the injury path of Von Miller again? We'll see. 16, defensive end Derek Barnett. I mean, this is a guy who really relatively cheap. If you can get him anything single digits per year, anything 8 to 9, less than 10, I think he's absolutely starting caliber. 17, defensive tackle Jaron Reed. People have kind of forgot about him because he kind of fell out of favor, if you will, in Seattle with the Seahawks with that heavy D-line rotation that they love to utilize with Mike McDonald and stuff. Over there, safety, 18, safety, Justin Simmons. This is kind of a get-by option at safety for 1 and 2 years max. 19, safety, Julian Blackman. This is a guy I'd really be intrigued by. You can play any safety role and would tie the room together really nicely and stay really young. And he has a lot of experience for how young he is. 20, defensive tackle, Sebastian Joseph Day. We're going right back to the well, if you will, for the 3rd straight offseason. I'm really kind of pounding the table, beating the drum badly for him, if you will. 21, defensive Malcolm Kuntz. Grossly overpaid projection for spot track of $20 million a year, $21 million a year, I think it was. $20 million. That'd be ridiculous. 22, defensive end Josh Uche. Not as high on him as I was last year's free agency class offseason, but still relatively high enough. 23, safety John Johnson, an even worse version of Justin Simmons. I'm kind of pivoting off of this, but if you want to get by option. 24, defensive end. After this, it's kind of a drop-off. After kind of Josh Uche at 22, it's kind of a drop-off in terms of who I wouldn't be overly excited to get any of these guys, but like if after this, if we don't get any of these guys, okay, it's whatever. 23, safety John Johnson. 24, defensive end Shaq Barry, probably retires though. 25, oops, sorry, my notes kind of got all out of whack. Okay, sorry about that. 25 corner, Elijah Molden. 26 defense. I think Elijah Molden is good. I just don't know how high of a priority it is for outside corner. 26 defensive end, Baron Browning, who I struggle with because he's shown flashes but never really put it all together. He's very explosive, shot of a cannon type player off the edge. 27 corner, Akello Witherspoon, get by option. Ideally, you draft someone in the first or second or third round after that early. And then next, the last 6 here are linebackers, just ordering the linebackers in order of special teams purposes. 8 linebacker Trent McDuffie, or 28 Isaiah McDuffie, excuse me. 29 Demetrius Flanagan Fowles. 30 Eric Wilson. 31 KJ Britt. 32 Neville Gallimore. 33 ending up the linebackers and whole list in general. Linebacker Sean Phillips. Anyways, guys, that's today's episode of Around the Slice. I'm much more excited for defensive free agent class. I think it's way better than the offensive free agent class that we went over last week, a couple episodes ago. So anyway, that ties the ribbon on in total, 33 offensive free agent targets, 33 defensive free agent targets. So for Brandon Beane, the Buffalo Bills, in my opinion, if I was GM, if I was Brandon Beane, let's just say Aiden Weingartner was GM, hypothetically, of the Buffalo Bills. That's what I'd go after between these 2 episodes. So I have a very exciting last couple weeks before free agency officially starts, the moratorium period, negotiating whatever, March 10th and March 12th, new league year starts. Starting Friday, today's Friday. So starting Monday, February 24th, it's obviously a Buffalo Bills podcast centric, but I love to look at other teams and check in on rivals and what their offseason will look like. So starting Monday, February 24th, we're going to check in and give you my offseason previews and kind of offseason look aheads for big AFC rivals starting on Monday, February 24th with Kansas City Chiefs offseason preview, and then we'll do the same for the Dolphins, Jets, and ending with the New England Patriots. That will lead us up. I got it all planned out. Lead us up right to free agency. We'll have instant reaction pods, analyzing what we still need as we go along, previewing the draft, reacting to the draft. This offseason, next few months and beyond, mainly next few months, is going to be absolutely incredible. Anyways, guys, you can follow me on Twitter personally at AWagner13. Follow the show on Twitter at Around Slice. You, of course, watch or listen to this podcast on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Please help me get to 50 subscribers through free agency in the draft process. I'm on the journey to the Big 5-0. I'm not very far back. I know you guys can help me do it. Anyways, I will see you Monday, kicking off the rival offseason previews with previewing what's ahead for Kansas City Chiefs offseason as a huge rival. Anyway, see you Monday. Thanks for supporting as always. Have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend. I will see you then. Goodbye.